I witnessed humans go to battle and learned why the cosmos trembles before them. The journey to Velith Minor would take 18 hours. And Calveth spent much of that time wandering the human ship in a state of growing unease. Everywhere he looked, he saw things that disturbed his understanding of civilized species. In the training bay, human soldiers fought each other with controlled violence that bordered on savagery. They struck and grappled and threw one another to the ground, and when they finished, they helped each other up and laughed. "Does this not concern you?" Calveth asked Lieutenant Cho, who stood beside him watching the sparring. "Your people injure each other for entertainment." "Training," Cho corrected. "There is a difference. We hurt each other now so the enemy cannot hurt us later. Every bruise earned here is a lesson that might save a life in real combat." Calveth made notes in his journal, struggling to find the proper words. The Valorian military trained through simulation and theory, considering physical confrontation to be primitive and unnecessary. These humans seemed to believe that pain itself was a teacher. He continued his observations in the ship's mess hall, where soldiers gathered to eat together. The food was simple but plentiful, and the humans consumed it with obvious pleasure. They shared stories and jokes, many of which Calveth found incomprehensible. Why did the Marine bring a ladder to battle? One soldier asked, "Why?" Her companions responded, "Because she heard the enemy had the high ground." Laughter erupted around the table, and Calveth tilted his head in confusion. The humor seemed to be connected to their impending danger, making light of death itself. "You find amusement in mortality," he observed to Cho. "We find amusement everywhere," the lieutenant replied, loading his plate with something called rice and vegetables. "It is how we stay sane. If we thought too hard about what waits for us, we might never get out of bed." Later, Calveth was invited to observe a briefing session where Admiral Park explained her strategy to the senior officers. What he heard there shocked him more than anything else. "The Varaks expect us to follow standard engagement protocols," Park explained, highlighting positions on a holographic map. "They will form their fleet in a defensive sphere around the planet, forcing us to spread thin and attack from multiple vectors. This plays to their numerical advantage. So we do not give them what they expect," a captain named Yoon suggested. "Exactly." Park smiled that unsettling human smile. "We punch straight through their center in a concentrated spear formation. Their ships will struggle to reposition, and we will reach the planet before they can properly respond." "Admiral, our losses would be catastrophic," another officer noted. "The center of their formation will have the heaviest concentration of firepower." "I know." Park said nothing else, and Calveth waited for her to continue, to explain how she would minimize casualties or find some clever alternative. She did not. "You are planning to sacrifice your ships," he blurted out, forgetting his role as silent observer. The humans turned to look at him, and Park nodded slowly. "I am planning to reach those civilians before the Varaks can finish their harvest," she said. "If that costs ships, if that costs lives, then that is the price we pay. We did not travel all this way to fight cautiously and let innocents die while we protected ourselves." Calveth's species had a concept called proportional warfare, where military forces carefully calculated acceptable losses before engaging. It was considered wise and rational, a sign of advanced civilization. The humans seemed to reject this entirely. "Have you informed the Allied fleet of this strategy?" he asked. "I have." Park's expression hardened. They objected. "They will follow standard doctrine and engage from optimal range. That is their choice. We will do what we must." The briefing ended, and Calveth returned to wandering the corridors. He found himself in a small chapel near the ship's center, where several humans sat in quiet contemplation. Some held small objects, photographs or tokens, and others simply stared at nothing. Lieutenant Cho found him there. Religious observance, the Marine explained. Some of us believe in gods or spirits. Others simply need a quiet place to think before battle. What do you believe? Kelveth asked. Cho considered the question for a long moment. I believe in the people beside me, he finally said. I believe that if I fall, my brothers and sisters will complete the mission. I believe that what we do matters, even if no one remembers us. And if you die, then I die doing something worthwhile. Cho shrugged as though discussing the weather. Everyone dies eventually. What matters is how you spend the time before that moment. Kelveth had lived for 3 centuries and expected to live 3 more. The idea of accepting death so casually seemed impossible to comprehend. Yet here stood a young human, perhaps 30 standard years old, speaking of his own end with perfect peace. The ship shuddered as it dropped from faster-than-light travel. All hands to battle stations, the announcement system declared. Enemy contact in 40 minutes. This is not a drill. The ship transformed around Kelveth. Soldiers who had been laughing moments ago now moved with focused purpose. Weapons were checked, armor was sealed, and prayers were whispered. The humans became something other than the species he had been studying. They became predators. Kelveth reached the observation deck as the Varax fleet came into view. 200 warships surrounded Velith Minor, their weapons already firing on the planet's surface. He could see flames burning across continents, cities dying in real time. All ships, this is Admiral Park. The communication system carried her voice across the fleet. We did not come here to play it safe. We came here to save lives. Form up on my position. We are going through the center. The Allied ships hesitated, holding their formations at the edge of the system. The human fleet did not wait. 30 human vessels accelerated toward 200 Varax warships, and Kelveth watched them go with something between horror and awe. They were so small against that terrible armada, so fragile, so utterly mortal, and they did not slow down. I witnessed humans go to battle and learned why the cosmos trembles before them. The first human ship died within 3 minutes of contact. Kelveth watched the destroyer Resolute vanish in a sphere of fire as Varax weapons tore through its hull. One moment it existed, and the next it was scattered atoms drifting through the void. 200 human lives ended in a single flash. The humans did not slow down. They accelerated. All ships maintained formation. Admiral Park's voice remained calm despite the chaos. Target their command vessels. Ignore everything else. Kelveth gripped the railing of the observation deck as the Indomitable shuddered under enemy fire. Sparks flew from damaged systems, and somewhere below, he heard humans screaming orders and responses. Hull breach on Deck 7. Someone shouted through the communication system. Seal it, came the immediate response. SEAL team is gone. We lost the whole section. Then manual override. Get someone in a suit. Through the observation windows, Kelveth saw human ships burning. 5 had fallen in the first exchange, then 8, then 12. The Varax fleet poured fire into the attacking formation, and the humans absorbed it without breaking. A Marine appeared beside him, pulling him away from the windows. You need to get to the secure section. The soldier shouted. This deck is about to become a target. Kelveth allowed himself to be led through corridors filled with smoke and emergency lighting. He saw wounded humans being carried toward the medical bay, their bodies broken but their faces showing no despair. Some even continued giving orders while their comrades dragged them to safety. Lieutenant Cho found them at an intersection. Historian, you should see this, the Marine said, his armor already scarred from debris. You wanted to understand humans. This is your chance. He led Kelveth to a damage control station where a team worked frantically to repair a critical power conduit. The outer hull had been breached nearby, and emergency force fields flickered dangerously. If those fields fail, this whole section vents to space, Cho explained. Then why are these people still here? Calveth demanded. Because if this conduit goes offline, we lose weapons on the port side. A technician answered without looking up from her work. We stop working, we lose the ship. We lose the ship, we lose the battle. Simple math. The force fields flickered again, and everyone in the room braced for death. The fields held. Got it, the technician shouted. Power restored. A cheer went up, and the team immediately moved to the next crisis. Calveth stood frozen, trying to process what he had witnessed. These humans had continued working while knowing that any moment could bring their death. They had chosen the mission over their survival. The ship lurched violently. Direct hit to the engine section. The announcement declared, "We are losing propulsion." Through the corridors, Calveth heard Admiral Park's voice on the communication system. "All ships, the Indomitable is compromised. I am transferring command to Captain Yoon on the Defiant. Complete the mission." "Admiral, we can stabilize." Someone protested. "Negative. We are going to ram their command ship. Clear the launch bays and get our people off. You have 4 minutes. Ram the command ship." Calveth felt his blood turn cold. The humans were going to deliberately crash their flagship into an enemy vessel, sacrificing everyone aboard who could not evacuate in time. "We need to go." Cho grabbed his arm. "Escape pods now." They ran through corridors filling with smoke and flame. Around them, humans worked with desperate efficiency, launching shuttles and pods while the ship died beneath their feet. Calveth saw Admiral Park on the bridge through an open doorway, still giving orders while her crew evacuated. "Admiral, you need to leave." An officer shouted. "Someone has to steer this wreck." Park replied, "Go." "That is an order." Lieutenant Cho pushed Calveth into an escape pod and climbed in beside him. The pod launched seconds later, and through the small window, Calveth watched the Indomitable continue its charge. The human flagship, burning and broken, accelerated toward the Varax command vessel. Enemy weapons tore into it continuously, and pieces of hull flew away like leaves in a storm. Yet still it came, driven by whatever crew remained aboard. Impact. The Indomitable struck the Varax command ship at full speed, and both vessels vanished in an explosion that temporarily blinded sensors across the battlefield. When Calveth's vision cleared, he saw debris spreading in a vast cloud where 2 ships had once existed. Admiral Park and her remaining crew were gone. "Humans of the Coalition fleet," Captain Yoon's voice came through the communication system. "The Admiral's sacrifice has killed their command ship. Their coordination is broken. All remaining ships, engage at will. Show them what we are." The surviving human vessels, fewer than 15 now, attacked with renewed fury. They fought without formation or strategy, each ship choosing its targets and pressing attacks that seemed suicidal. And then the Allied fleet arrived. The Krethax warships and Silicon vessels finally entered the battle, their weapons joining the chaos. The Varax, already disorganized from losing their command ship, began to falter. From his escape pod, Calveth watched the tide turn. Human aggression had broken the enemy's spirit, and Allied numbers now pressed the advantage. Varax ships began retreating, abandoning their formation and fleeing toward the system's edge. The battle was won, or so Calveth thought. "All human vessels, pursue and destroy." Yoon commanded. "No Varax ship leaves this system." The Allied fleet slowed, establishing defensive positions around the planet. The standard doctrine called for consolidation after victory, protecting gains rather than risking forces in pursuit. The humans ignored doctrine. They chased the fleeing enemy into the darkness between stars, hunting ships that no longer posed any threat. It was not strategy. It was not military necessity. It was something else entirely. It was vengeance. And for the first time, Calveth understood why other species might fear humanity. They did not fight to win. They fought to ensure their enemies could never threaten anyone again. They fought until nothing remained but ash and silence. The cosmos trembled because humans did not know how to stop. I witnessed humans go to battle and learned why the cosmos trembles before them. The ground was still burning when the shuttles landed. Calveth stepped onto the surface of Velith Minor with Lieutenant Cho and a company of human marines. The air tasted of smoke and chemicals, and the ruins of a once beautiful city stretched in every direction. Fires burned in collapsed buildings, and somewhere in the distance, weapons still fired. Varak's ground forces are entrenched in the Eastern District, Cho reported, checking his tactical display. They are holding civilian hostages in what used to be a processing center. Processing center. Calveth knew what that meant. The Varaks did not take slaves in the traditional sense. They harvested species, extracting genetic material and biological resources for their industrial processes. The civilians in that center were not prisoners waiting for rescue. They were raw materials waiting to be consumed. How many? He asked. Sensors show approximately 4,000 life signs, a Marine answered. Mixed species. Mostly Valorian and Silicon colonists. Valorians. Calveth felt his heart clench. His own people were in that building, waiting for either salvation or a fate worse than death. We go now, Cho ordered. Fast and hard. We hit them before they can execute the hostages. The Marines moved through the ruined streets with terrifying efficiency. They cleared buildings and intersections without slowing, eliminating Varak's defenders with precise violence. Calveth struggled to keep up, his longer legs somehow inadequate compared to the humans' relentless pace. They reached the processing center as night fell across the colony. The building was massive, a former warehouse converted into something nightmarish. Varak soldiers guarded every entrance, and automated defenses tracked the surrounding streets. A direct assault would be costly. Options? Cho asked his squad leaders. Roof access through the adjacent structure, Sergeant Bay suggested. We drop in, cause chaos, and open the main doors for the rest of the company. Casualties? High. The initial team will take heavy fire before support arrives. I will lead the roof team, Cho said immediately. Sir, that is a suicide assignment, which is why I am not ordering anyone else to do it. The lieutenant checked his weapon and turned to Calveth. Stay with the main force. Document what happens. If we fail, the galaxy should know we tried. Calveth watched Cho and 11 volunteers scale the adjacent building and disappear onto the roof. Minutes passed in terrible silence. Then explosions rocked the processing center and weapons fire erupted from inside. Main force, go! The company commander shouted. The Marines charged the front entrance, and Calveth followed despite every instinct screaming at him to hide. He needed to see. He needed to understand. Inside, the processing center was worse than he had imagined. Rows of containment pods lined the walls, each holding a captured civilian in chemical suspension. Some pods were empty, their occupants already processed. Calveth saw equipment he recognized from horror stories, machines designed to extract every useful component from a living being. Human Marines fought through the facility with cold fury. They showed no mercy to Varak soldiers, killing with efficiency that bordered on mechanical. Yet when they encountered civilians, those same brutal warriors became gentle and careful. Calveth watched a Marine who had just killed 3 enemies kneel beside a terrified child, speaking softly and offering comfort. You are safe now, the soldier whispered. The monsters cannot hurt you anymore. I promise. How could the same species contain such violence and such tenderness? Lieutenant Cho's team had secured the control room, and the main doors opened to allow reinforcements. Kelveth found the lieutenant sitting against a wall, his armor cracked and bleeding from wounds that should have been fatal. 4,000 civilians, Cho reported, his voice weak but satisfied. We saved 4,000. Lost 8 Marines. Good trade. Good trade. 8 human lives for 4,000 alien strangers, and this dying man called it a good trade. Why? Kelveth demanded, kneeling beside him. Why do your people sacrifice so much for species you barely know? Cho coughed blood and smiled. Because someone should, he managed. Because if no one stands against evil, evil wins. We choose to stand. That is who we are. Medical teams arrived and carried Cho away. He would survive, Kelveth later learned, though his fighting days were over. The lieutenant had given everything he had for people he had never met. Outside the processing center, human forces gathered Varax prisoners. Most had surrendered once their position became hopeless, and they now knelt in rows under Marine guard. Their commander, a massive creature called Vothax, was brought before Captain Yoon. You have lost, Yoon stated simply. Your fleet is destroyed. Your ground forces are eliminated. Velith Minor is liberated. This changes nothing. Vothax snarled. The Dominion has conquered 1,000 worlds. You cannot stop us. We will return with more ships, more soldiers, and we will take what we want. Yoon smiled, and that smile contained no warmth. Show it, she ordered. A Marine activated a holographic projector, displaying images Kelveth did not recognize. He saw human cities burning in ancient wars. He saw soldiers charging into fortified positions against impossible odds. He saw nuclear fire and biological weapons and the aftermath of conflicts that spanned generations. This is our history, Yoon explained to the Varax commander. This is what we do to each other. We have spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of destruction. Everything we have shown you today is merely a fraction of what we are capable of. Vothax's confidence wavered. You think you know war? Yoon continued. You harvest helpless civilians and call yourselves conquerors. We crawled out of the mud and fought our way to the stars. Every creature on our world tried to kill us, and we killed them instead. We are not your prey. We are the predators you never knew existed. What do you want? Vothax demanded. We want your masters to receive a message. Yoon leaned close. Tell the Dominion that humanity remembers. Tell them that if they ever touch our allies again, we will find their homeworld. Tell them we do not accept surrender. Tell them we do not stop. She turned away, leaving the Varax commander trembling. Let it go, she ordered. Let it carry our message home. I witnessed humans go to battle and learned why the cosmos trembles before them. 3 weeks after the Battle of Velith Minor, Kelveth stood before the Galactic Council. The Grand Chamber was filled to capacity. Representatives from every member species had come to hear his report. Word of what happened at Velith Minor had spread across the galaxy, and everyone wanted to understand what the humans had done. Distinguished representatives, Kelveth began. I was tasked with documenting human behavior during the recent crisis. What I witnessed has fundamentally changed my understanding of this species. He activated the holographic display, showing images from the battle. Burning ships and desperate charges, Marines fighting through impossible odds, Admiral Park steering her dying vessel into the enemy command ship. The human fleet lost 18 of 30 vessels, he reported. 40% of their forces were destroyed. By any rational military assessment, this should be considered a devastating failure. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Yet the humans consider Velith Minor a victory. Kelveth continued. They saved 4,000 civilians. They destroyed 93% of the Varax fleet. They broke the Dominion's expansion into council space. They measure success not by what they preserved, but by what they protected. He changed the display to show Lieutenant Cho leading his team into the processing center. I watched human soldiers volunteer for missions they knew would kill them. I watched them weep over strangers they could not save, then turn and fight with terrible fury against those responsible. I watched them show mercy to some enemies and absolute destruction to others, choosing based on principles I am only beginning to understand. Ambassador Threllax raised a limb. "You speak as though humans are remarkable," he clicked. "Yet they are physically inferior to most species. Their lifespans are laughably short. Their technology is merely adequate. What makes them different from any other young species?" Calveth had anticipated this question. "Everything," he answered. "Humans are remarkable precisely because of their limitations. They know they are fragile. They know they will die. They know that every battle might be their last. And they fight anyway." He displayed information about Earth, the human homeworld. Their planet is what we call a death world. High gravity, extreme temperature variations, abundant predators, and constant geological instability. Humans did not evolve in comfort. They evolved in crisis. Every generation of their species fought for survival against their own world. This has made them different from other civilizations. Most species reached the stars because they had time and peace to develop. Humans reached the stars because they refused to let anything stop them. Not their planet, not their limitations, not each other. The chamber grew quiet. I interviewed Lieutenant Cho Jinho after the battle. Calveth continued. He had been severely wounded leading the assault on the processing center. I asked him why humans sacrifice so much for species they barely know. He played the recording of Cho's response. "Because someone should. Because if no one stands against evil, evil wins. We choose to stand. That is who we are. This is the human philosophy," Calveth explained. "They do not fight because they expect to win. They fight because fighting is right. They protect strangers because strangers deserve protection. They oppose evil because evil must be opposed. These are not military calculations. They are moral imperatives." The Krethax ambassador shifted uncomfortably. "You make them sound like heroes," he growled. "They are merely soldiers. Effective perhaps, but nothing special." "I would have agreed before Veleth Minor," Calveth admitted. "I thought humans were primitive newcomers who had gotten lucky. I was wrong." He displayed one final image. The human delegation leaving the council chamber after the battle, and other species stepping aside to let them pass. This image was captured 2 days ago. Notice how the other species move. They are not simply making room. They are showing respect. Word of what happened at Veleth Minor has spread, and the galaxy has recognized something that I also came to understand. Humans are not remarkable despite their short lives and fragile bodies. They are remarkable because of them. They know they are mortal, and they choose to spend their brief existence protecting others. They know they might die, and they charge into battle singing. Calveth paused, gathering his thoughts for the conclusion. "I came to Veleth Minor to study primitives. I left having witnessed something ancient and terrible. A species forged in fire, tempered by death, and utterly unwilling to let darkness win. The Varax Dominion has received a message from the human government. It reads simply, 'Touch our allies again, and we will find your homeworld.' Our intelligence suggests the Dominion is withdrawing from this sector of space. They have decided that whatever resources they might gain are not worth the cost of human attention. This is what humans bring to the galaxy. Not superior technology, not overwhelming numbers, but something far more dangerous. They bring commitment. They bring righteous fury. They bring the absolute certainty that some things are worth dying for. He concluded his report with a statement that would echo through council records for generations. The cosmos does not tremble because humans are strong. It trembles because humans will not stop. They will fight when others flee. They will sacrifice when others calculate. They will protect when others abandon. They are not the most powerful species in the galaxy, but they may be the most determined. I recommend that the Council formally recognize humanity as a protected ally, not because they need our protection, but because having them as enemies would be catastrophic. Let us be their friends instead. Let us stand beside them rather than against them. Let us hope that when darkness comes for us, humans will remember that we chose to stand with them. Calveth stepped back from the podium. The chamber remained silent for a long moment. Then the Silicon delegate rose and began to strike his manipulators together. The Valorian representatives joined him, and then others, until the entire chamber thundered with applause. Through the noise, Calveth noticed the human delegation sitting quietly in their section. Admiral Park was gone, but her successor sat in her place, a woman named Admiral Jang, who had the same unsettling calm in her eyes. She noticed Calveth watching and nodded once. A simple acknowledgement from one species to another. A recognition that something had changed. The galaxy had learned to fear humanity, and perhaps more importantly, to respect them. The cosmos trembled, and Calveth understood why. Humans did not know how to surrender. They only knew how to endure.